Leadership debauchery and elite idiocy will ruin any nation, no matter how perfect the political or structural blueprint that they adopt. And it has been well established by social scientists that the collapse of powerful civilizations is hardly ever precipitated by external attack, but instead by internal decay, or what the ancient mystics call the want of order in the soul.
Welcome to the Majestic TV News Update. We're exploring the harmful impacts of leadership debauchery and elite incompetence in Nigeria today, a country brimming with untapped potential. Give yourself a moment, soak in the information, and ponder its implications.
What leads a nation as richly endowed with natural resources as Nigeria to perpetually grapple with issues of leadership and governance? This thought-provoking inquiry branches out the path for our exploration today. Embarking on our journey, we start with the administration of President Buhari, concluding with the present-day leadership of Tinubu. Under President Buhari's rule, Nigeria staggered under the of insecurity. The land was afflicted with banditry and terrorism, a harsh reminder of the devastating impacts of poor leadership. Nigerians lived in fear, their dreams and aspirations stifled by an unyielding wave of violence. The hardship and suffering felt by the common people were in many ways akin to the biblical trials quoted by the esteemed Reverend Father George Ehusani. Reverend Father Ehusani once boldly proclaimed in his speech on a YouTube link, "Criminally minded gangsters have taken over Nigeria. We have a useless system." This statement rang true during Buhari's reign, a turbulent period in Nigeria's history, with the nation's problems being amplified by uninspiring leadership. The administration's inability to curb the escalating wave of insecurity painted a grim image of a country in desperate condition, its people shouldering the weight of a leadership crisis. And then came the era of Tinubu. Many hoped that with this change would come a new dawn, a respite from the trials and tribulations that had become all too familiar. However, the Tinubu administration seemed to lack the necessary vision and ideas to salvage the situation. The hardship continued, the suffering persisted, and the people's cries for change echoed through the land. But, as the saying goes, every cloud has a silver lining. Even in the face of such adversity, solutions have been proposed. True federalism and regional governance have been highlighted as potential ways forward. These concepts emphasize the cohabitation of the federating units, fostering mutual respect and understanding among diverse groups. In conclusion, the journey from the governance of President Buhari to the current administration of Tinubu has been fraught with challenges. The hardship suffered by Nigerians is a testament to the leadership crisis plaguing the nation. However, hope remains in the form of proposed solutions, such as true federalism and regional governance. As we navigate the murky waters of leadership and governance, it is our collective responsibility to ensure that the lessons learned from these trials serve as a stepping stone towards a brighter future. Thus, we've journeyed from the era of Buhari's leadership, through the trials and tribulations, and into the present-day administration of Tinubu. We've seen the effects of poor leadership and the potential solutions that could turn the tide. Remember, change begins with you and me. It's a call to action for all Nigerians, a call to rise above the challenges and strive for a better tomorrow. Respected and revered, Reverend Father George Ehusani, a well-known figure in Nigeria, has not shied away from expressing his concerns about the nation's state. In his powerful speech titled, "Criminally minded gangsters have taken over Nigeria. We have a useless system," he paints a vivid picture of the leadership crisis and the deteriorating state of governance in Nigeria. His words, though harsh, resonate with many Nigerians who have long suffered under the weight of poor leadership. Reverend Father Ehusani's perspective cuts deep, highlighting the painful truth that criminally minded individuals have infiltrated the corridors of power, leading to a system that often fails its citizens. He emphasizes the need for change, for a system that truly serves its people, and not just a select few. His message is a clarion call for Nigerians to rise up against the tide of corruption and injustice permeating our society. The impact of his words has been significant, sparking heated discussions and debates across the nation. His message, though critical, is not without hope. He believes in the indomitable spirit of Nigerians and their capacity to effect change. In closing, Reverend Father Ehusani's words serve not only as a stark reminder of the challenges that lie ahead, but also as a rallying cry for change. His message is clear: the time for action is now. Nigerians must rise up, united in their resolve to create a better future for themselves and generations yet unborn.
More convinced today than ever before that leadership, debauchery, and elite idiocy will ruin any nation, no matter how perfect the political structure and governance blueprints that they adopt. Leadership, debauchery, and elite idiocy will ruin any nation, no matter how perfect the political or structural blueprint that they adopt. And it has been well established by social scientists that the collapse of powerful civilizations is hardly ever precipitated by external attack, but instead by internal decay, or what the ancient mystics call due to the want of order in the soul. The want of order in the soul. Let me use passages of the Judeo-Christian scriptures to illustrate the point. We read in Proverbs 14:34 that righteousness exalts a nation, but that sin is a reproach to any people. Proverbs 29:2, we read that when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked rule, the people groan. Proverbs 29:4 says, it is by justice that a king gives stability to a land. And Proverbs 29:18 says, where there is no vision, the people perish. Some translations render this verse, Proverbs 29:18, as, quote, where there is no leadership integrity, the people do perish. What this means is that leadership integrity is fundamental and critical to national development, national unity, and national peace and prosperity. Or that the socio-economic and political fortunes of a people are tied up to the integrity or lack thereof of its leaders. This idea is very well illustrated in the history of Israel. When they had good leaders like Joshua and David and Hezekiah and Nehemiah and Ezra, they conquered their enemies, they experienced restoration, and they enjoyed peace and prosperity. But when they had leaders who lacked integrity and the fear of God, like Saul and Jeroboam and Rehoboam and Ahab, etc., they were easily defeated by the enemies who went ahead to loot and pillage their resources. And what has been sufficiently demonstrated in human history and in our own recent national trajectory is that the socio-economic and political fortunes of a people often hang peremptorily on the integrity or lack of integrity of its leaders. Where there is moral integrity among the ruling class, the people make economic progress and experience stability and peace. But where the leaders are illegitimate, corrupt, unjust, immoral, lacking in credibility, the people suffer economic stagnation, social discourse, and eventual collapse. As we gather here today for one more brainstorming session on the imperative of evolving new governance structures for Nigeria, I wish to remind the respected patriots, elder statesmen and women, legislators, political scientists, governance experts, as well as civil society activists here present, that though we all seem to agree that the prevailing political structures in our nation are not working for the people, though we all seem to agree that there is an urgent need for revisioning, for reconfiguring, and for restructuring of the Nigerian nation, nations, however, are built primarily and fundamentally on values, and not on the quality of political or structural blueprints they embrace, nor on the abundance of material resources, as indeed the post-independence Nigeria experiment has demonstrated. Nation building refers to the internal, organic, and dynamic process by which a society identifies, discusses, contests, and reaches consensus on shared values, principles, and norms. It refers to the process by which a society galvanizes a sense of national cohesion, consolidates a national identity, and forges a sense of common purpose or set of common goals to which the society is oriented. In other words, nation building is the process of molding diverse groups into a unified, cohesive, harmonious, and stable national entity with shared vision and collective mission. Now, essential and of critical importance in the process of nation building is a transparently honest, visionary, self-sacrificing, and therefore legitimate and credible leadership. Such leadership assumes the role of architects, engineers, and project managers of the emerging nation. Thus, strong, stable, unified, and prosperous nations are built, I say, fundamentally on values. And experience has shown that such values are anchored on and sustained by leaders of transparent integrity and credibility, whose very lives encapsulate and personify the values that they seek to propagate in the polity. Otherwise, such values will hardly take root in the society. When, however, such critical values for nation buildings as leadership integrity, justice and fairness, as well as high degree of patriotism and sacrifice for the common good, when such values are missing, what we often have is a free-for-all. Intractable conflicts from Maiduguri to Yanagua and from Ondo to Benue. Monumental corruption, political tension, social discord, the preponderance of violent crimes, widespread impunity, including executive impunity, etc. Indeed, 4th century philosopher St. Augustine of Hippo declared that kingdoms or societies devoid of justice are nothing but a bunch of bandits and a gang of robbers. Kingdoms devoid of justice are nothing but a bunch of bandits or a gang of robbers. It is justice that builds kingdoms. Where there is no justice, what you have is a gang of bandits or a bunch of robbers. What the foregoing implies is that as we engage in multiple dialogue events and public debates on the reconfiguration or restructuring of the Nigerian nation and what governance structures best suit our context of ethno-religious and cultural diversity, we must pay close attention to the reality of widespread moral vacuity among the political, economic, religious, and socio-cultural elite of our nation. As we engage in one more brainstorming session on the future of the Nigerian nation, I ask that we pay attention, urgent attention to, and address very critically the embarrassment of what has been called a naked public square. Naked public square, whereby criminally minded characters and alleged gangsters in our midst are more easily finding their way to all levels of political office than men and women of honor, integrity, discipline, modesty, patriotism, and sacrifice. Yes, as we engage in one more political dialogue session, I ask that we seriously interrogate the situation whereby our nation more easily throws off for political office crooked and devious characters, including ethnic bigots, religious extremists, those who regularly manipulate the religious sentiments of the people, those who recklessly exploit the age-old ethnic acrimonies and antipathies in the land for selfish gain, And those thoughtless others who habitually loot the local government, state government, or national treasury for themselves and their families and render the population destitute. Until we address this anomaly, this fundamental error in our concept of political leadership and the leadership recruitment process, I do not believe that any measure of tinkering with our political structures alone will transform our fortunes. Nigerians have produced tons of documents, and Sam has referred to some of them just now. Nigeria has produced tons of documents from several dialogue sessions in the last 63 years, but let me limit myself to the last 29 years, from Babangida's 1986 Political Bureau to Jonathan's 2014 National Dialogue. The recommendations for structural reform from these dialogue events have been ignored by a succession of leaders. But these previous recommendations must now be considered among the low-hanging fruits from which to start the project of salvaging our failing nation state. If Nigeria is to be saved, the changes we require to bring about are not superficial at all. They are massive, they are fundamental, they are far-reaching. But in my view, the required changes can be summarized under three broad themes. 1, rule of law. 2, equal citizenship. 3, self-determination, or what has been described as devolution of powers, so as to reflect our true nature as a federal state and not a unitary system that is pretending to be a federation. We must trace our steps back to the federalist route negotiated by the founding fathers and understand that the basis of our existence as Nigeria is mutual respect of the religious, ethnic, and cultural diversities of all those in the Union. It took several years for the founding fathers to negotiate the kind of constitution that we had in 1960 and 1963. And the military guys came in 1966 and changed it all with no negotiation. We need to return to the negotiation if we are to have peace. The 1979 Constitution has vested too much power in the center and emasculated the federating units. There is widespread call today that we dust up the 1963 Constitution and amend it for our present-day circumstances. Part of the implications of this, as Sam has said, may be that we go back to embrace the parliamentary system, that we adopt no more than 6 or 7 viable regions or states. Most of the money we generate in this country is used to service the bureaucracy. It is not sustainable. When I was a young boy, we had one place called Ebira Division. Now you have 5 local governments with 5 chief executives that need to be serviced. And they don't generate anything. So whatever they receive from Abuja is used to just service the chief executives. It's a useless system. We need to throw it away. Yeah. So we need to have local administrative structures that are viable, that generate resources. When I was young, the local government, the division, they had a works department, they had agri department, they had forestry department, they had water resources that worked. That worked. We had forest rangers. We had, they repaired our roads. There was water supply. As a young boy, I didn't go fetching water. I had water supply, clean water that you can drink from the tap in my house. We need to return to the kind of system that gave us that. We need to cut down massively on the cost of governance by merging ministries, departments, and agencies in a much more radical manner than the Ehusani report. I mean, I felt terribly disappointed that after 12 years, you just announced that you approved the Ehusani report, but since the Ehusani report, you have created 600-700 more departments and agencies. So are you saying that we return to Ehusani report, meaning Ehusani report said we should have only about 300. So should we have only about 300 and merge all the others? And I would say yes, meaning ignore all the ones that were created ever since then, because they are not sustainable. I know agencies and departments that have signboards, federal government commission for these, and they have big houses in Abuja, and you hardly see anybody there. Because some of those things, they were supposed to be ad hoc commissions. Meaning the task for which they were created could be carried out in 3 months and, they are done away with. But people have been receiving money, they have been chief executives for 10 years. It's a useless system and we need to throw them away. We must now summon the courage to discuss openly and frankly the thorny issues of religion and state of origin. We must agree on what place, if any, Sam already alluded to this, what place, if any, religion should play in governance, and resolve on whether we want to live under a monarchical theocracy of some sort, or we want to live together as a modern, federal, democratic, multi-ethnic, and multi-religious entity founded on the principle of justice, equity, equality, and mutual respect. I am a priest of the Catholic Church, but I am one of the first to say the government has no business funding pilgrimages, Christian or Muslim. If we are not able to resolve these thorny issues once and for all, I would humbly submit that we allow any political entities desiring to succeed, please let them do so safely and peacefully. Before it is too late, because quite frankly, as presently constituted, Nigeria is not working for the majority of those who call this place their home. Just last week, I was at a forum, and I mentioned that if till today, Nigeria has not been able to apprehend and bring to justice those who killed Deborah, I don't want to live in that kind of society. Reason is that why must I be bound by the blasphemy law of another religion? If I am accused of hate speech, I should be tried in the courts because we have laws covering that. But why should I be bound by the blasphemy laws in the 21st century or blasphemy laws of another religion? Because actually what is blasphemy for another religion may not be blasphemy for my religion. And that till today nothing has happened to apprehend and bring to justice those who killed Deborah, I think is a terrible thing. It's a terrible stain. It's a crime against humanity. I said it somewhere and somebody got up and said, oh, but we don't know, we don't know what she said and so on. I said, whatever she said, she deserves her day in court. And if she never had her day in court and she was killed by mob justice, I don't want to live in a country where by mob justice people are killed. I don't want to live in that kind of country. Let me conclude by saying once again that I honestly do not believe that any measure of political or structural configuration can take Nigeria out of the present conundrum as long as we as a people continue to bear such a heavy burden of ethical and moral degeneracy. To address this situation that has bedeviled our nation, what we require is nothing short of a wholesale ethical and moral revolution. But can the imperative of an ethical and moral revolution be incorporated into the ongoing debate on the reconfiguration, recalibration, and restructuring of the Nigerian state?
Having listened to the powerful words of Reverend Father George Ehusani, we must now ask ourselves, what can we do? As citizens of this great nation, we have a duty to respond. If you resonate with the concerns raised by Reverend Father Ehusani, we urge you to take action. Subscribe to our channel for more insightful content and share this video far and wide. Let it reach the ears of those in power and remind them of the responsibility they bear. Remember, the urgency of the situation cannot be overstated. The time for change is now, and it starts with each one of us. We must not be complacent in the face of corruption and injustice. Instead, let us rise up and demand better for ourselves and future generations. As Reverend Father Ehusani rightly said, the time for action is now. Let's heed his call and take a stand for what is right. Join us in this fight for a better Nigeria. Remember, tomorrow is not assured. The time for action is now.